Welcome back, fellow Patriots, to another episode of Patriots of the American Republic. Since I was a child, Dad taking me to the movies was one of my favorite things to do. And like many of us, we grew up watching the magic of movie cinema. So as an adult, I enjoyed sharing that movie magic with my children and taking them out to see, sci-fi flicks like Star Wars, and definitely took them to see, during the golden age of superhero movies like the Avengers, right, and many, many other films. So when it comes to, or when it came to superhero movies, the Marvel Cinematic Universe stands out on top, right? For a little over a decade, the MCU produced hit after hit, and it seemed like they could do no wrong, and were seen by many as, an entertainment juggernaut. Unfortunately, the insanity of the left seeped its way into Hollywood, and we began to see levels of wokeness deteriorating everything it touched. And now in 2025, we are beginning to see a potential decline of wokeness from the entertainment industry. That's what we're going to discuss in today's episode. And joining me today is Ray from the Ray Infinity Show. Ray, how you doing today, pal?
Man, hey brother. I've been doing all right. Just like I told you in our messages, I've just been focusing a lot on my health lately. So just everything, and also just dealing with life in general. It's all you can do.
Nice, nice. Well, welcome to the show. It's been a while since you've been here, so welcome
Well,
back, my friend.
well, it's been a while since I've even done a show in general. Last time I did one was with I think it was with Osiris like 3 months ago, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe 4 months ago. I would have to check.
Nice. Nice. Well, so just to give you a heads up, most of the videos that we're going to cover today, Ray, and for the audience, are going to come from, in my opinion, pop culture king Nerd Roddick. He's got a huge following, over a million subscribers. So if you like some of the videos that you'll see here today, they're coming from there. So head on over there and check them out. But let's just do a little opener, right? And let's take a look at some of the stuff that we're going to be getting into in this particular episode.
Friends, Disney Marvel's had a rough time of late. It's been almost a year since the release of Deadpool and Wolverine, the billion-dollar box office smash, and as predicted, it was just an anomaly and it would be right back to the regular scheduled Disney Marvel programming, and it's been all downhill from there. Despite Bob Iger repeatedly saying over years when it comes to Disney Marvel that they were going to start focusing on quality over quantity, over the last 9 months, the opposite has happened as Disney Marvel has put out a steady sewage stream of slop featuring A and B list characters that even comic book fans would have a hard time caring about, that are radically altered in some form or another, be it the passing of a mantle or just an outright race and gender swap, so these characters can reflect the Los Angeles that they live in today.
All right. So in that intro, right, we could see a number of different things that we're going to tackle on today's show. But just for starters, Ray, let's just give a little bit of background into Disney's purchasing power, right? Mm-hmm. So for the argument of this video, we're going to stick to predominantly Disney stuff. But I mean, it doesn't just it's not just exclusive to Disney. It's all of Hollywood and all of entertainment. But for the sake of this video, we're going to stick to Disney. So I think when it comes to Star Wars, right, going back to the background, Star Wars was, one of the biggest pop culture franchises that, started way back in the late 70s, right?
It was indeed the biggest, not one of. It was. I don't even think that's even up for debate.
Star Trek.
It was bigger than Star Trek. I'm sorry. Star Trek may have been there at one point, but Star Wars took it over just shortly after A New Hope release. It was even before Empire Strikes Back. Agreed.
So on October 13th of 2022, Disney, who was known for making, great family-friendly G-rated films, movies and cartoons, purchased the Star Wars franchise from creator George Lucas for about $4 billion. Before this major acquisition, Disney purchased Marvel and all of its characters, or almost all of its characters, for about $4.24 billion back in December of 2009. Both of these acquisitions would be pillars into Disney taking their company in a new direction that, to be honest with you, excited many fans. Were you excited when you heard any of those news?
No, actually. And right before I say that, you forgot to mention Pixar too. They purchased Pixar. This is back in the mid 2000s, I believe. But yeah, I didn't find out about Marvel till like a few months afterwards, because back then I was a kid. I just wasn't paying too much attention. But when Star Wars came around, I was ticked off about it. like I was the usual guy, the typical person that said, "Man, Disney is just gonna like Disney-fy Star Wars. You're gonna see all this weird stuff like blah 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 blah, all this stuff." I didn't like it, but eventually over time it grew on me. Because like I wasn't the biggest fan of the Force Awakens, but there was at least enough stuff to enjoy about it, and a bunch of stuff it set up. But then when Rogue One hit, I'm like, I'm full in. I'm fully in on this. I was almost addicted to Star Wars. Maybe that's not the right word, but you know what I mean. Like I was just paying attention to every tiny little detail of Star Wars.
So I was excited in the sense that we were going to get more Star Wars films because, from what I understood, George Lucas had no intentions of really doing episode 7, 8, and 9. So from that aspect, I was excited that Disney was going to be the ones that they picked it up, and they were going to go ahead and do that, because obviously if they're making that type of an acquisition, it's not just to sit around and do nothing with it. It's to, milk it for every dollar it can, right?
Yeah. Well, George, that's actually conflating, because there was conflating whether George would do it and would not. He said he wouldn't do it after the prequels because of how much hate he got from a lot of the toxic fans. Like, and I'm not talking about like us people like us. I'm talking about legitimately people that were literally sending him death threats and stuff like that because they hated the prequels. But then he grew on to it where he was going to do it, but then he realized he didn't want to do it because he was getting up there in age, and he didn't know if he was going to be there around enough to do it. So he hired Kathleen Kennedy, which was the biggest mistake, and I think George can never admit it because of contract negotiations. But I think deep down he regrets putting Kathleen Kennedy in that spot. I think he really does.
Yep, I agree. So let's start with the success of Star Wars. So starting with Star Wars, the new trilogy took a very interesting turn as it began to focus on, dreaded DEI aspects of wokeness, to be quite frank, right? They decided to ditch the male lead and focus on a female-centered character. Now, that's not a huge problem, but the problem is your franchise is about 95% male, and they decided to have, again, a female lead. So, okay, maybe perhaps not a killer, right, initially, but within this character, they made her far more superior than any character, current or prior, within the Star Wars universe. Additionally, they managed to also disrespect established characters like Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, who the original movies were kind of focused in and around. So although these movies made money, each one performed actually worse than the following sequel. So I'll give you some numbers, and maybe I'll show it here.
I know the numbers specifically. I think The Force Awakens made a little over $2 billion. The Last Jedi made around $1.3 billion, if I'm not mistaken, and The Rise of Skywalker made $1.1 billion, I believe.
So as you can see here, so these figures are coming from thenumbers.com, which are pretty reliable. So you can see here, right? Domestically, The Force, which is episode 7, made almost $1 billion. Worldwide, it made 2, so that's almost $3 billion, right? When you take the budget and you double it, because typically they tell you take the budget and you double it for marketing costs, right? And all the other little nuances in between. So you normally double it. You're looking at an estimated revenue of almost $2 billion. That's not bad. That's pretty darn freaking good in movie when we talk about movie numbers. Now, when you look at The Last Jedi, well, let me not go too far down. But when you look at The Last Jedi, it did about $300,000 less domestically, right? I'm sorry.
Million.
What did I say? Million. Yes, I'm sorry. These are a million. This one did about 700 million worse, right? And the budget was not as big, but neither was the revenue, 1.4. But nonetheless, 1.4 billion is pretty good. And then Rise of Skywalker, again, doing less, right? 100 million less, right? And even globally, right, did 300 million less, just about. And then it had a slightly higher budget of 275, totaling out to 1 billion. So overall, not bad, but you can see that there's a very, very obvious trending. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think does this take into consideration the theater's cut of the money? Because I don't think it does from what it's showing.
I'm just going off of doubling the budget, and
Okay.
I don't know if that would entail it or not.
Okay, let's just pretend that it doesn't. Let's just pretend about that.
Okay.
It was clearly showing that the fans were showing up less and less. But then again, I do have to make a fair point though. The Force
Okay.
Awakens was that was a phenomenal thing, movement around it, because Star Wars was gone for like a little over a decade, and people were just so hyped for it. So I got to give that one a little pass. That's why it made $2 billion. Now after that, that's when we can get into everything. Like the
Well,
last,
that episode 7 is kind of riding on the tailcoat of the prior franchise, right? Of George Lucas's Star Wars. So that's why it did as good as it did, because I'll tell you what, if episode 7 comes out on episode 9 or episode 8, it would suffer the same consequences or same results as the episode 8 and 9.
Yeah.
So, but you know what? What's interesting is this trend not only affected the movies, but it also impacted the TV shows, specifically after Disney fired Gina Carano during their successful Mandalorian TV show. It was very clear at that point that Disney chose a political side, and it was obvious after the 2020 pandemic and the Summer of Love riots, right?
Mm-hmm. They fired Gina over things that weren't really controversial. It was just comparing something. That's all it was. But then again, they kept Pedro Pascal, who did something very similar, and yet they kept him on. So you see the hypocrisy right there.
Correct. Let's switch gears and talk about Marvel's success now. In 2008, the MCU was kickstarted by Iron Man movie, right? Its post-credit scene became a signature move that would spark excitement, intrigue, and connect one Marvel film to the next Marvel film. They created a formula to introduce a multitude of different characters and then set up each film to individually bring all of those characters together for a first ever superhero team movie known as The Avengers. Each was essentially considered a success as they developed phases that would focus on specific story arcs until the culmination of the main villain was revealed. That would be Thanos. And that spanned over the course of 10 years?
11.
So 11. So this looked like Disney's MCU was here to stay as they hit home run after home run. Unfortunately, Disney decided to go woke and began to race swap and gender swap characters for the sake of diversity. They allowed female superiority, which did not hesitate to make men look inferior, dominate their male characters against a massively male-heavy audience, but they also didn't stop there. Due to the backlash from longtime comic fans, Access Hollywood Media also had writers and directors that began to insult fans, calling them racist, homophobic, misogynistic, Nazis, to pretty much anyone who disagreed or didn't like what they were putting out there, especially if they were Trump supporters or even perceived to be a Trump supporter. Like in Gina's case, Gina Carano's, she wasn't a conservative and she wasn't a Trump supporter. But to your point, she made a comment, and the fact that she seemed it was pretty much enough to get her fired. But at this point, Ray, I think it's undeniable that phase 4 of the MCU has gone off the cliff, as Marvel is now losing money with every film that it makes, causing the company to re-strategize how they're going to handle future projects going forward. What do you think?
I've enjoyed actually a good portion of it. I mean, I haven't hated everything that's been in the MCU after Endgame. I'm trying to be fair right here.
Yeah.
There's been stuff I have liked. We've talked about it privately too, but there is a whole bunch of garbage out there. Like to quote Stone Cold Steve Austin, because I'm a huge wrestling fan, it's been a big old piece of trash. That's basically what it is. Like, I'm a huge wrestling fan.
So we've done videos. I think last year we did a video, covering how some of the animated films, such as like Buzz Lightyear, literally cost them like over $100 million. And why? Because Disney decided to get into politics, not hire the original voice actor, which was Tim Allen, and then they also decided to include inappropriate material for children, like LGBTQ characters, in children's animated films. So this didn't stop them as they continued to push woke material into its films. Hints of wokeness started to pop up, in my eyes, during Avengers Infinity War, but they were front and center during Endgame. And then the pedal was, pushed heavy after that. So during Endgame, they decided to retire Captain America, Steve Rogers, played by Chris Evans, and replace him with Anthony Mackie's character, the Falcon, as he would take the new mantle of being Captain America, all in the name of, let's be real, DEI. You've got a character that has no superpowers whatsoever, replacing a character that has superpowers and is able to wield a shield, a heavy shield made out of, it's fantasy, but it's vibranium. And in order for you to make that shield bounce off of walls, off of villains, and then back into the hand of Captain America, you need some special abilities for that. And let's be real, Falcon, MCU Falcon, doesn't have that. So to be quite frank, in my eyes, it was just put there for DEI purposes.
Me and you did have a private conversation about this when it came to Captain America and Falcon. My thing is, I didn't mind it because it was something that was in the comics. Now, what I can agree with you on, which if you watch Falcon and Winter Soldier, Sam, when which was basically which is Falcon's, Sam Wilson's origin story becoming Captain America. What happened was he had an opportunity to take the super serum, the soldier serum, but he didn't. Now I understand what they're trying to do right there. They wanted him to be like where he's his own man. He doesn't need superpowers, but that's something that I just mainly disagreed with, especially like in the new Captain America movie. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but there's a scene where like Red Hulk literally grabs the top of his head, and literally, if you grab someone's head like that, his entire head, it would crush him. But the thing was, it didn't kill him, which didn't make any sense whatsoever. So I'm like,
so you've got to keep in mind when that comic book came about, and we'll get into that. I've actually got a video specifically for that. But for now, let's take a look at the numbers of each Captain America movie and see how it stands up with one another, right?
Yeah.
So as you can see here, right, the first Captain America movie, roughly, again, going by that doubling of the budget, roughly earned them about $267 million, right? And this is like prior to inflation, right? So that's pretty decent, to be quite honest with you, back in those days. Winter Soldier actually does a really good amount at $634 million, right? Civil War crosses the billion mark, and again, this is estimated revenue at this point. But the Brave New World, 254, doing just about worse than the first Captain America movie. And again, these are all coming from the numbers, and I've got an asterisk here at 180, at 180. So before I tell you why I have the asterisk there, I want to get your views on these numbers here.
Well, I see the trend because back in 2011 when the first Avenger came out, it was Captain America wasn't as popular as he became. He was just like a character like him. You knew him. You just weren't a huge follower of him. But then Avengers came out and he became much more popular. But then when Winter Soldier came out, woohoo! They gave Captain America such a strong edge in that movie. It to me, it's the best Captain America film. It just really is. I enjoy watching it all the time. As a matter of fact, I watch it every now and then just to get entertained. And then come to Civil War, which I love Civil War. I just don't love it as much as Winter Soldier because I think it was just a little not overcrowded. It's just that it was more this is a weird thing. It's more of an Iron Man movie than it is a Captain America movie, but that's a story for another day.
I would say it's more of an Avengers movie.
Well, it is kind of an Avengers movie, but if you really dig at the bones of it, Iron Man had more to do with the story than Captain America did, if you really look into it.
Yeah.
But still at the end of the day, I love the film. Now, I did see Brave New World. I didn't see it right away. It was a few months after it came out. Here was my quick thoughts on it. I don't hate the movie. I don't hate it. I really don't. It's just nothing special. I mean, I wouldn't pay to go watch it again. I mean, I did buy the DVD only to have it in my collection. That's all I bought it for. Yeah. But like I said, it's nothing special or anything like that. So yeah.
So there are rumors that Disney's not being honest about the budget due to the massive reshoots that took place to finalize this film and get it to the theaters. Let's take a look at our next video.
Over 300 million. Mm-hmm. I've heard about all this. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Then they changed the title to Brave New World from New World Order because Disney Marvel is worried that that term was co-opted by conspiracy theorists who believe that globalists, bankers, and shadowy organizations are trying to establish a single authoritarian world government. Like, who would believe that? Then, of course, there were the well-reported ballooning budgets that were anywhere between $350 million and $375 million that Disney later lied about and said was $180 million, which was actually the price of the reshoots. Now, Disney Marvel would never lie about a budget, except for the time they did with Doctor Strange and the Marvels.
But wait! There's more!
The box office projections have gone from a $95 million domestic opening over the 3-day weekend to a $90 million domestic opening over the 4-day weekend, which is $30 million less than Ant-Man Quantumania. And one of the biggest shockers is the corporate critic score on Rotten Tomatoes is 51%.
So what are your thoughts there?
I completely agree with him that Disney is manipulating the budget numbers. There's no doubt about that, especially with how much reshoots. Like, I heard so many reports over about, I think it was may have been a little under 2 years, that there was a whole bunch of problems going on with Captain America: Brave New World or New World Order at that time, and that the response to it was so bad that they shot almost the entire movie like just to fix the problems with it. But even the reshoots didn't fix all the issues, because in the movie itself, there's literally the dialogue is just so, it's offensive dialogue. I'll just say like that. It's offensive to common sense, because no one would in the right mind would say that. And all you can tell they were just trying to move it along quicker just to get everything done faster, because they were trying to, because of all the reshoots. And then on top of that, there were so many scenes that were so quickly done. Like, you see a shot, then you cut to something else immediately. It's pretty obvious the reshoots were so massive, just so massive.
So it's hard to determine for me on a mathematical level if they lost money or barely scraped by. And the reason I say that, because that 350 to 375 that Gary just talked about, if that 350 is their initial budget, right, and you add in the 180 for the reshoots, we're talking about 530. And, together between domestic and international, they made about 613. But if that 350 is their initial one, and we have to double it, right? Now we're doubling it to 700, and you add the 180 reshoots, they lost money on this, and they lost a lot of money. So it just depends. Either they lost a lot of money or they barely scraped by. But I think they lost money, to be honest.
I agree. I don't disagree with you one bit on that part, not even a little.
So let's move on to the next film. Let's take a look at that. You told me that you kind of enjoyed, which was the Thunderbolts film. This movie was, it was received a little better, not just by yourself, but a lot of people actually received it better than in prior recent films. But the film, again, mathematically speaking, was still a technical failure. Let's take a look at the numbers here.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can see here, I'm going to zoom on in. So the Thunderbolts, as you can see here, we've got a domestic earning of about 190 million, right? Worldwide, about 380. A budget, again, doubling up, 360. Your estimated revenue is about 200. What do you think?
Yeah. A lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, but I think that it's actually unfortunate because of how much I actually love that movie. Yeah, like I told. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm listening to you.
Yeah, I love the movie. Like I told you beforehand, when I first saw it, I really enjoyed it. I really did. But then the second time I saw it, I absolutely loved it. Like I can't wait till it comes out on 4K because I'm going to be buying it the first night, and I might be watching it like every day through just for a while because I love that movie so much.
Do you think, based on those numbers that I showed, do you think that the marketing had something to do with it, or do you think there was something else behind it?
Why it failed?
Yeah, because I know that you liked it, but the numbers don't reflect that. So you're in the minority.
Yeah. Well. I will get into that later. But the thing is, what I think the main issue why it failed was because here's something that no one even talks about. Every character in the movie was a secondary character in another person's movie. No one wants to talk about that. Because if you're taking these B and C lists, maybe even some that are D list characters, and you just throw them in a movie the casual audiences, because that's where the most of the money is from the casual fans. They're not going to go out and see it. They'll just wait to watch it at a later time because they don't know if it's going to be good or not. But
I agree. I agree with you, and that's why I said other. When I said other, I was actually thinking about that. But then we contrast that with Suicide Squad, and Suicide Squad for DC was a success. It got 2 films.
Yeah. Well, that's a little different. That was over a decade ago, and plus on top of that, the box office was a much more healthy time, and also the economy was actually better back then than it is right now. We're still working on getting it fixed.
Hollywood hadn't shot itself in the foot at that point. You know what I'm saying? So that does play into it. So the next Marvel flop comes at the title of Ironheart, or I like to call it Wolkheart, to be honest with you. There have been a lot of negative reviews on this show, followed by your usual calls of Marvel fans being racist and white supremacists. But let's check out our next video and take a look at what's going on with Wolkheart.
But after that, Captain African American flopped, Daredevil flopped, the Thunderbolts flopped. And the House of Mouse and Marvel, the House of Out of Ideas, was expecting at least one win in there. A win they didn't get. And this brings us to Ironheart. Maybe Kevin Feige was thinking he could sneak this in between a couple of hits. Turns out that was
not a great plan.
Not only not a great plan, the worst plan in the history of plans. If you recall, Ironheart was announced on December 10th, 2020, and filming was completed in November of 2022. And then Kevin Feige actually watched it.
It was at this moment that he knew he f***ed up.
And after 2.5 years and almost a dozen attempts to re-edit this turd, they could delay it no longer, and they finally released a trailer in the shortest amount of time in Marvel's history and herstory between any MCU project's first trailer and its release date.
Iconic.
Which was ratioed into oblivion for good reason.
Iconic.
Because it turns out adapting an unpopular character from an unpopular comic that was canceled multiple times.
Iconic.
And then deciding to have the genius idea to adapt it into a television show that cost between $100 and $150 million, coincidentally greenlighting it right after the events of the Summer of Love, purely as a virtue signal, adds to the Olympus Mons of evidence that Bob Iger and Kevin Feige
don't know what the they're doing.
That I like that part. I really do. I should have
pretty funny, man.
Oh yeah, I should have known he would have done that. You should see his Rebel Moon review, like where he actually took an audio line from him and put it into a certain section. You have to go, but when you have a chance, go back and watch his Rebel Moon review, and you'll see it.
He's a funny guy. So here's the problem that I have with the reviews going on, or not the reviews, or the counter to the reviews by calling fans racist and white supremacists, and usually the usual garbage that they do. The problem that I have here is that it's really lazy, because myself included, we cheered when the Black Panther showed up in Civil War. I know I did. I was like, oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. So if we all cheered, and I was in a movie, a theater, and everybody clapped when Black Panther showed up. Mm-hmm. So if it was really a racist thing, why did we clap for Black Panther back then? Right? Mm-hmm. The movie, everybody loved Black Panther, the character, and we've shared this before. It wasn't up until the movie Black Panther where it started to either directly or indirectly insult its white-based audience heavily, and at that point, then we can see where the woke stuff really started to hit the Marvel films, right?
Yeah. Well, the only issue that I had with Black Panther, and this was just me personally, was basically like I don't know how to say this, but Killmonger, like maybe they probably shouldn't have gone that way with his motives because he was a villain, but at the same time there's something interesting I liked about it. T'Challa didn't want to declare war on the world. He wanted peace because he was able to move on from everything that happened. But Killmonger wasn't able to, and so he just went down a dark path. Like, I see what they're trying to do right there. I see it, but at the same time, still, I think I kind of see what they're trying to say with what Killmonger is. I kind of
so with Killmonger, I didn't have a problem with him being a racist because he's a villain, right? You don't expect villains to have morals, right? So I didn't have a problem with him. What I had a problem with the undertones from the director and certain actors. For example, when they called I forgot what one of the agents, they called him a colonizer, right?
that I
Just
had
because
an
he was
issue
white.
with.
Right, so those types of undertones are what I'm talking about in the film. Killmonger. I mean, he's a villain. It is what it is. But those types of undertones from a writing and a directing perspective is what I really had a problem with. But moving on, so the next Marvel film that we have to talk about down the line is Fantastic Four, which is coming up, I think, next month in July, right?
July 24th.
July 24th. So this is Marvel Comics' first family, right? Rumors are swirling that because of early screening on the film, that the film is not really looking too good for Marvel, right? There's some panic going on supposedly. From the beginning, in my eyes, the film has been plagued by questionable issues. Specifically, when we look at the casting of Pedro Pascal, number one. Number two, making Sue Storm the focal girl boss, the focal point of a girl boss in this film, and then gender swapping the Silver Surfer from a male to a female, right? And then when you look at that, when you look at the trailer, right, and you see the comparison of what the Silver Surfer looks like, it's like, how did we go from like, I don't know, man. I mean, the Silver Surfer from the Fox era back in the 2000s was really smooth, really nice looking. And then this Silver Surfer, we're talking about 10 years later, the visuals look worse. It looks horrible. Let's take a look at the next video, and then I'll get you your take on it.
And now for this year anyway, everything is relying on the Fantastic Four starring Pedro Pascal and featuring one of Marvel's biggest mistakes in years, and that's saying something, the female Silver Surfer. Put simply, it was just a dumb business decision. You risk alienating a lot of fans with a female Silver Surfer, and you would have risked alienating absolutely no one with the real one, Norrin Rad. But I guess the good news is everybody at Disney and Marvel are pointing fingers at each other and not at you. And that's a first, you know what we say around here, progress, not perfection.
What are your thoughts?
I completely agree with him on the Silver Surfer. Like, when that news first broke that they're going to have a female Silver Surfer in the movie, my reaction was like, "Oh my God, no! Just please, God, stop doing this!" Like, yeah. I was just ticked off by that because I mean, I didn't find out this out till later that there was a female Silver Surfer in the comics, even though it was a brief thing. But it was so brief that in with all of this stuff that's been going on in politics and in Hollywood, you know why they're doing it. Just because it was something that was in the comics, like, and it was something brief that no one even thought twice about it, and then now you're doing it in the live action movie. We know what you're trying to pull. Like, no one's dumb enough to see it.
So it's funny that you can say that for this Silver Surfer, but you couldn't say that for Captain America Falcon.
Because that was a longer thing in the comics, much longer.
But look at the time of when it was established.
No, that was back in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. This female Silver Surfer thing was long ago. It was like maybe two issues at most, and then that was it. But
so you're proving my point. So the female Silver Surfer was long ago, what, in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, something like that. And then woke Captain America is now in the 2010s. So you're actually proving my point, right?
I disagree with that part.
It's more for DEI now than the other one. But
well, then also on top of that, well, back in 2010, we weren't really thinking that much about like politics when it came to comic books, though. I'm trying to be fair. I'm trying to be fair.
No, you're wrong. You're completely wrong, and we'll get to that. I'll show you how. But let's move on to the next topic, which is insulting the fans, which Marvel seems to do, or Disney seems to do a lot. Unfortunately, Hollywood itself has made it a point to insult the paying customer in more ways than one. Sometimes it's indirectly through the storytelling. Sometimes it's disrespecting the source material, as we're discussing now. And sometimes it's directly. And then finally, sometimes it's all of the above. They do everything all at once, right? When it comes to insufferable actors and actresses, Brie Larson is at the top of Disney's list until we had a new contestant pop up onto the scene, relatively, 2023 or 2024, named Rachel Zegler. Now, she's the lead actress for the Disney live action film for the classic Snow White film. So from calling the original film, the original cartoon as outdated, to directly insulting Trump supporters and telling them not to watch her films, it's undeniable that Rachel Zegler was the primary cause this film tanked and literally cost Disney hundreds of millions of dollars. Let's take a look at the next video before you weigh in.
Snow White is no mere box office flop. It is again a historic, cataclysmic, catastrophic, embarrassing failure for Disney and Hollywood. And you just hate to see it. But the good news doesn't end there, considering what movie put Snow White in second place in its second week. From The Hollywood Reporter, box office upset, blue-collar drama A Working Man beats Snow White with $15 million opening. The dismal performance of Snow White in its second weekend is more bad news for Disney and Hollywood, and it puts the live-action pick in official bomb territory after falling off a steep 66%. And I'm sure you will notice, dear viewer, how The Hollywood Reporter very subtly, or not so subtly, tries to make this something political. Middle America is taking charge of the box office because everyone in the big cities is going to see Snow White, where David Ayer's blue-collar drama A Working Man beats Snow White in a surprise upset with a better-than-expected domestic opening of $15.2 million from 3,262 theaters. That, I might add, is 1,000 fewer theaters than Snow White. And in second place, Snow White, which took in $14.2 million from 4,200 locations, a steep decline of 66% as the live-action update continues to be dogged by poor word-of-mouth, well-deserved, and controversial headlines over its titular star Rachel Zegler. The film's domestic tally throughout Sunday is a muted $66.8 million domestically and $143.1 million globally.
She attacked Twitter and Elon and finished with Donald Trump.
Man.
Hello, Disney. You're going to have to redo your film again.
The lead actress in Disney's Snow White remake has been brought right back down to earth after making some very tone-deaf comments that haven't translated well amid the horror opening weekend of the movie.
Many photos like this across social media, completely empty theaters, many videos that have been shown online of completely empty cinemas.
Snow White bombs, breaks records for the lowest live-action remake opening ever.
Where did it all go so catastrophically wrong? Was it Rachel Zegler, appointing one of the wokest actresses in history? Was that the catalyst for all this?
Yes! Yes!
I couldn't agree more. Rachel Zegler was if you watch the entire campaign, the marketing campaign leading up to this movie, did you see how much she was talking bad about Trump supporters and conservatives? There was even more stuff that they didn't even point out right there, and basically wishing conservatives, wishing they have bad lives, wishing them have bad luck and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, the fact that you're doing that shows that this goes beyond politics. This goes on to shows that you truly have hate in your heart. That's what it shows at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And this film bombed so bad that it forced Disney to cancel its live action film of Tangled.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I'm not surprised.
So, you would think you would think these people are in the business of making money, but it seems like they're in the business of losing money because they want to put a political agenda at the forefront. I don't know. So Disney doesn't seem to understand its audience. That's clear. I mean, we've displayed that several times throughout the course of several videos here. They've taken iconic characters and wokenized them, if you will, and they've changed them in order to prevent them from, in this next case that we're going to show, they're changing certain characters in order to prevent them from being associated with law enforcement, conservative fans, not really understanding that they have that they play a heavy part in their base. Now, this is the part that I want to bring in, that we were talking about the wokeness of when characters started in the comics. Check this out, and then we'll get into the Punisher bit.
Sam Wilson became Captain America in the mid-2010s, being a part of the ill-fated all-new, all-different Marvel, an era that gave us race swaps, gender swaps, characters randomly turning gay. It gave us Ironheart, Captain Falcon America, Nazi Cap, and Carol Danvers Captain Marvel, or as better described, Carl Manvers.
As you saw there from Gary, a lot of those woke characters came out in the comics, like you pointed out, and around the time that you came out, but for the specific purpose of DEI. What are your thoughts?
Well, like I wasn't aware of most of those. I wasn't even aware of, to be honest. I'm just being straight up. The only one I was aware of was Captain America, because that's the one I paid most attention to. And this is just me. I wasn't bothered by it. That's just me. Maybe it's just we're looking at something a little different here. But that aside, with all the other characters, I'm like,
I personally don't like any characters being changed. I don't want any. I don't want, like, for instance. Okay, so there's a new Black Panther. He's gonna be white in an alternate reality. At this point, they're making fun of the left, right? But if this were something serious, I would also be against that, because Black Panther's not white. Black Panther's black.
Yeah. But also, here's one thing though. I forgot to mention. They're not making Steve Rogers black. They're taking another character and having him take the mantle.
No, I get that, but they're still replacing it. Captain America is Steve Rogers. You see what I'm saying? Because what happens is, by replacing the secret character, right, or the person's identity, right, with somebody else, you change the essence, right? It's like they did with Miles Morales and Spider-Man. I like Miles Morales. I just don't like him as Spider-Man. He should be like, I don't know, like Electric Spider-Man or something like that, something different, right? Because what it is we fall in love with the character, not just the the superhero, right? There's a reason why Bruce Wayne is Batman, right?
Well, Dick Grayson did become Batman after Bruce Wayne, though. We can't forget that part.
I get that, but that's a natural progression, right? He trained him. He's been Robin. He's been Nightwing, right? It makes sense, and it's not permanent, right? It was something that was probably temporary or another.
And Sam was one of Cap's best friends too, which he then naturally progressed into the role.
I actually have Sam Wilson, his Falcon comics from the '90s, which I absolutely loved. I loved him being Cap's sidekick after Bucky. The problem that I have again with number one, I just don't like characters being swapped out. So for instance, in the movie, in the Cap 4 movie, didn't they get a Hispanic to play Falcon now? Isn't he the new Falcon?
Apparently, this is some new guy that they charge up. I'm not aware of this guy if he's in the comics or not. This is just some random.
No, I don't know if he's in the comics or not, but in the movie, the Falcon is now Hispanic. Why? I don't like that. I don't like that. I really don't like that. It bothers me.
Yeah. My main issue is that if you're taking that actual person, like Bruce, like let's take Bruce Wayne for instance. If he changed his race, that I would be angry about. But if you're taking another character and him becoming that, it happens to be of a different race and becomes that takes up that role of Batman, I actually wouldn't have a problem with that. That's just me though.
Yeah, that's you. Like for instance, so Lucius Fox, his son he joins the Bat family and becomes like this Batman with a suit, but he's not called Batman. He's called something else. I'm totally fine with that. Who was from Superman, right? Steel, right?
Yeah.
Steel is a black character. He's not Superman. He has the emblem of Superman on him. He's like an Iron Man Superman. Love that character, right? But he's not Superman. You see what I'm saying? It just, to me, it's like the characters need to stay who the characters originally are. You can bring in new characters and make them something different and kind of transform a little, but the character's got to stay the character. I mean, you know what? You can arguably say that is part of what's causing the decline on the movie side and on the comic side. People grew up loving these characters. They don't want to see them changed.
I can agree with you on that part, but then what does that apply to comic book teams? If you remember the main X-Men team that we are aware of, like Wolverine, Storm, Nightcrawler, Cyclops, well, maybe not, well, Cyclops and Colossus, all of them, they weren't the original X-Men team in the comics, if you remember. They came much later. So is that kind of the same thing, really? Because they're changing something about it.
No, because you're not changing the actual character. You're adding on to the team, but you're not changing the character. You see what I'm saying?
I kind of get it. I just kind of disagree with you on that part. I personally don't have a problem with new people taking up the mantle. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
As long as it's not that exact same character, like that exact same person. Yeah, you get what I'm trying to say, though, right?
Yeah. So there's two aspects. It's the replacement of that character with so like for instance in the Marvel they replaced the Marvel with a female character when he was originally a male character.
Marvel, that character.
Marvel, correct. Marvel,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah,
But it was the Marvel movie.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I mean, I just thought the movie was bad in general. So I didn't.
No. Yeah, but I was just giving you an example of what.
Yeah,
you were saying.
I understand what you're trying to. I understand where you're coming from. I just happen to, like I said, if you're changing something different about that particular character, that I have an issue with. But if it's someone else taking up the mantle, that I personally just don't have any issue with whatsoever.
So Marvel apparently has an issue with their Punisher symbol, as many conservatives have used that image to represent, their toughness. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about it, Ray.
Well, the Punisher symbol, the Punisher, one of my all-time favorite comic book characters of all time. I love him to death. I love the character. When he was very first introduced in Amazing Spider-Man number 129. I haven't bought that issue, but I want to get it one day. But what the Punisher, what he is, he was a former Marine, and then his family was killed, and the people who killed his family got away with it. And basically what the Punisher does, he punishes criminals, basically, and also protects the people who cannot protect themselves. And basically, his code is he doesn't care. If you are a criminal, he's going to take you out no matter what. He will unlive you, and he doesn't care. And the point of the Punisher logo, the skull that he wears on his chest, he puts it on his chest to drive fear directly into the hearts of criminals. That is his entire goal right there. It shows he's not going to show them mercy whatsoever. That is what he is trying to do right there.
Right, and we have that image. I'm bringing it up now. So we can see here, this is the skull image, right? So I've seen a lot of shirts with that for, I don't know, law enforcement. And, I've also seen some with Trump. It's got like a little flippy yellow hair on it and whatnot. So apparently Marvel has an issue with that.
Yeah. This was in Daredevil Born Again, the season finale. I loved everything they did about the Punisher, except this one scene right here. Because basically the whole show is about corrupt cops. I'm working for Kingpin, and you could have just had that story and be fine. I wouldn't have an issue with it. But when they take it a step further and they're literally pulling this, they're having all the corrupt cops wear the Punisher logo. Why? Because they can't stand conservatives that are wearing the logo. Like there's police officers and there's also military people that wear the logo on their armor. That when they go on their uniform, and these people on the left, they can't stand that because they can't stand anything being associated with the right because they deem them that are racist bigots. That's what they label them as.
It was so much so that they talked about taking out that symbol altogether and giving Punisher a new symbol, correct?
And they did in the comics for a while. They did. Wow. And then eventually you're going to laugh. You're going to laugh at this. When they took the Punisher away out of the comics for a while. And right before they did, you want to know something they did? They literally brought his wife back to life, and they had her tell Frank that what he was doing was wrong, and that he is not, and that vengeance is evil. You're doing something wrong by trying to murder all these people in the name of vengeance. And basically, they killed the Punisher right after that too. Basically, telling him that you are toxic and you are toxic masculinity and all this kind of stuff. Like basically saying he's a terrible person. When no, the Punisher isn't.
So the preaching to these people, right? Apparently, if you're a good guy, you're a bad guy, and if you're a bad guy, you're a good guy who deserves to be redeemed. That's the new direction that they want to go in.
Yeah, and they're saying that cops and military people who wear the logo are corrupt. Basically, it's a symbol that they are racist. Which and John Berthel has a different take on that. Who plays the Punisher? I've sent you an image and also a video of an image from Daredevil Born Again to show that the Punisher actually doesn't hate cops. He only hates corrupt cops. Because if you look really closely on the patch, and I didn't notice this till later, when you really look closely, you see an American flag patch on the Punisher's uniform. So this shows that the Punisher, Frank Castle, is not anti-America. He's anti-corruption at the end of the day. That's what he cannot stand. Like he loves America because he was a Marine too, and that shows that he was because of the patch he was wearing. But so yeah, basically it's John Bernthal, who's the actor who plays the Punisher, Frank Castle, because he was asked in an interview about the Punisher logo. About the Punisher special presentation, actually, I should say, that's coming to Disney Plus next year. And he was talking about how he supports military who wear it because he said some of the best people in our country have worn that Punisher skull on their body armor when they go into battle. So
let's take a listen.
Mm-hmm.
So grateful to the Marine Corps and that community for helping me on this journey, helping me write, helping me find this character. Some of the best people that we have in this country have worn that Punisher skull in their body armor when they've taken that that unbelievable walk into danger to stand up for our country. That's something that I take enormously seriously. I make the show for them. I make the show with them, and it's I just really, really want to get it right.
No, you got it right.
Oh boy, I appreciate you. So grateful to the.
Yeah. John hit it on the nail. He's 100% right there, and that's how the Punisher logo should be viewed, in my opinion. It's not some hateful rhetoric thing. What it is, it's shown to put fear into the heart of bad people. That's what it is at the end of the day.
Yep. Now, in every Disney release, regardless if it's Star Wars or Marvel or even a Disney animated or a live action film, you can be sure that the legacy media will tell you it's the best movie since the last movie, right?
Yeah.
Once a little bit of time passes, though, the media then has to shift as to why the movie is not performing as it was expected. They'll shift to what we just finished discussing, right? Which is insulting the audience, right? They'll start trying to make it seem like, oh, it's because of racism, misogyny, whatever the case may be, in order to justify the failure of the film. Let's take a look at this next example.
Admittedly, it's worrisome for Disney Marvel, and desperate times lead to desperate measures. And no, not just changing your movie's title after its opening weekend, actually admitting a little defeat and taking a little bit of responsibility. Now, don't get excited because we're talking about Disney here, but it is funny watching them blame each other. I guess this video could be called Disney Blames Marvel for Their Failures or Marvel Blames Disney for Their Failures. I'll choose one of them. At least this time they're not blaming the fans. This is from Variety following Disney's quarterly conference call featuring the Weatherman. The Marvel Cinematic Universe in particular hasn't restored its luster since the epic culmination of 2019's Avengers Endgame. There has been hits since COVID, like Deadpool and Wolverine, Spider-Man No Way Home, and Doctor Strange Mom. And now that I come to think of it, I think Thunderbolts is better than Doctor Strange Mom. But success has been widely inconsistent, as tentpoles like Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania, The Marvels, and Captain America: Brave New World were among Disney's first comic book franchise installments to lose money since the MCU brought superhero movies in vogue.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Aren't you the same Variety who said less than 3 months ago, Captain America: Brave New World flies to heroic $100 million over President's Day holiday weekend?
Would you look at that?
So yeah, so you can see there the dishonesty, and they do that regularly where they'll say this movie's really good and it's #1 and all that stuff. And then they'll admit eventually that, yeah, it's not as good as they originally projected, or they'll try and throw blame in order to save themselves space, right? And so on and so forth. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, they do throw blame. I mean, like, I think Thunderbolts I give them kind of a pass when it comes to that part, just a little bit, because I do think they intended to eventually change it from Thunderbolts to New Avengers. I give it a tiny bit of a pass right there. But that aside, it is a flop, and everyone has to acknowledge that it is. I think it's unfortunate, but still, nonetheless, it was. I think it's because so much buildup has been happening from people from being disappointed from Marvel all these years. I think people are starting to give up on it. Truly, they're starting to give up on comic book stuff in general.
Yeah, but look at the dishonesty, right? What they're trying to do, they know that this stuff is woke, and they know that we're not buying into it anymore. So what they got to do is they got to hype it up and make it seem like it's the best that Marvel or Disney has ever done, in order for them to capture those that are, still in the middle or not really that involved in, and not really that they're not paying that much attention in order to grab those little sales as they can in order to try and boost up the numbers as much as possible. But then it's failing because they may get some, but it's not what they need to make ends meet, and the numbers do reflect that, right?
Yep, I agree right there. Yeah.
So interestingly enough, though, we just finished talking about a blame game. Just a few weeks ago, sources are indicating that there's trouble in the House of Mouse between senior management. Let's take a look at this next video so that we can see what's the internal strife.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's where the weatherman seems to take a little bit of responsibility, and he does because he can't blame Bob Chapek directly anymore because you could only do that for so long, and the man was never in charge. We all know that in our zeal to flood our streaming platform with more content, no, that was you, Bob, that we turned to all of our creative engines, including Marvel, and had them produce a lot more, Iger said during Wednesday's investor call. We also learned over time that quantity does not necessarily beget quantity.
Is there a fucking echo in here?
Yup! And frankly, we've all admitted to ourselves that we've lost a little focus by making too much.
No shit.
By consolidating a bit and having Marvel focus much more on their films, we believe that will result in better quality.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Translation, Kevin Feige is going to focus on film because he can't make television, and now somebody else is going to oversee it, making it essentially a separate division, which it was before under Ike Perlmutter and Jeff Loeb, who both Kevin Feige and Bob Iger ran out of Disney. This brings us to our next article, which could be interpreted as the Kevin Feige and Marvel side of the story, and hey, a lot of this is going to sound familiar. From the Wall Street Journal, Disney wanted more from Marvel, now it wants less. The superhero studio is cutting back on TV production and fixing its film slate after fans lost the plot. Allow me to fix this headline and byline for you. Marvel blames Disney for its failures. The superhero studio is cutting back on TV production because they don't know how to make it, and fixing the film slate after they completely f***ed it up and Marvel lost the plot.
They're both to blame there, so yeah.
Yeah. But isn't it funny that they're blaming themselves as opposed to I guess blaming somebody else, right?
I'm curious who the PR people at Marvel and Disney are, because how would they allow that to be actually released to the public? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Well, they don't control Variety. I mean, you can only purchase somebody for so long, and then they do have their credibility at stake. So the more that they buy into that, with the numbers being the way that they are, their business is on the line. If I were them, I wouldn't have taken any money to say, it's good.
If it's something that's legitimately bad, you couldn't pay me enough money to say it. I would never. No.
Correct. You put your company at stake at that point.
Yeah.
So listen, here are my final thoughts. At this stage, it's hard to say if wokeness is really dying from a leadership perspective, right? They're certainly trying to, I guess, but it's certainly dying from a revenue perspective, right? Meaning it's turning off large portions of audience, which is impacting the total revenue, and it's literally costing Disney hundreds of millions of dollars. Until they go back to the basics, which I think is going to be very difficult, if not close to impossible, they will continue to lose people, because at the end of the day, people don't want to spend their hard-earned money being insulted or preached to, especially when all they're looking for is to relive some type of nostalgia from their childhood memories and be entertained. That's the bottom line. What are your thoughts?
I couldn't agree with you anymore. You nailed it right down the line. People want to relive their childhood again. That's why we go to these movies and read these comics, watch these shows, and all this, etc. Because we want to feel like how we felt when we were younger. And it seems to all be being taken away by all these executives that are pushing all this garbage down our throat by destroying all the legacies of all these characters and all these franchises. So, is it dying? Time will tell. I mean, because I personally don't have an answer to that. I couldn't answer that at this moment. But will it get better too? I don't know. Like I said, we'll just have to wait and see, because there's too much going on at the moment to even get a straight answer at the moment.
Listen, the fact that they're talking about making Professor X and Magneto and switching out their race, is telling me that they're full on with the DEI stuff, and they're not going to really change. And so at the end of the day, they're going to keep losing money. I haven't gone to the movie theaters. They have not gotten my money at the movie theaters since Endgame. So
you didn't see Spider-Man No Way Home in theaters?
Nope.
Huh.
Nope. Wow. I sure didn't.
I'm surprised.
I'm not giving them I'm not giving them my money. That's just the bottom line.
Didn't you see Spider-Man Far From Home though? Because I remember on your Transformers Prime page that you said you saw it just shortly after you saw Endgame. So
I saw Spider-Man 1 and 2 at the movie theater, but the third one I watched on a streaming service.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I didn't pay for it. Yep. Absolutely. Well, Ray, it's been an absolute pleasure and joy having you back on the show, man. Thank you so much for coming.
Yep. Thank you for inviting me. I can't wait for you to tell we'll keep this under wraps a little, but our next video we talked about what it's going to be. It's going to be very fun, very, very fun.
Very cool, my friend. Well, I look forward to it, man. Thank you so much to all the people that are watching. God bless you. God bless America. God bless Donald Trump. Take care. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Peace.